but this is just a brief overview of what a solidarity economy value chain could look like. And yeah, just help people think about that are here, where they fit in with kind of the broader either supply or value chain we want to discuss. So people might be familiar with, you know, these concepts, but creation, we had talked about the example of lettuce. I don't know, I'm thinking about lettuce because there's some lettuce growing out here in our little backyard. So you plant some lettuce, it's created, it might be produced in the sense of packaged or ready for the next stage, which is exchange, right? So there could be an entity which helps that lettuce circulate either through gifts or purchasing. And then finally, the consumption itself, which then could lead to a surplus or the realm of financing. So these are sort of the possible realms of the economy, and it might be nice to think about where your sector fits in. But I think the point we want to make here as well is that this allows for us to think about cooperation among cooperatives and how this unleashes a very important aspect of economic and political power. Because as you all know very well, if we're competing with the status quo or traditional economy, then it's much harder to get financing. Or if a group produces a certain service or good for a community, how are they able to distribute it when they're competing with other distributive organizations? So it's about creating a holistic alternative that can really challenge some of the status quo that surrounds us, corporate-led economic development, public-private partnerships, et cetera, and that are able to really assert, you know, another way, which, as Dr. Jessica mentioned, has been the case historically and in other parts of the world, where we see these sectors really challenge the rest of the economy. So I wanted to just briefly touch on a couple examples here in New York.
I would also mention.
Oh, yeah, so please, I'm so sorry, Sheryl. Yes.
I'd also mention, like, it's like a closed loop or a spiral where because we're not thinking from a scarcity lens, we're thinking of how to benefit cross-sectorally and cross-sectionally. We're going in a closed loop where one it doesn't end, and there are infinite possibilities. So
that's a beautiful idea, Sheryl. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. Where it's actually not just like, this is what I've been able to develop and it stops there, but actually it enriches every other group, and then that helps you as well. So it's a different kind of way of being, really, for organizations and people. So very briefly, also jump in, anyone, and Sheryl as well. If we could just, Claire, go to the examples that we talked about in New York of some value chains. Some of you might be a part of these, actually. So we have the CSA called Brooklyn Sport Agriculture. It is distributed by Brooklyn Packers, a worker-owned business, and supplied by the cooperative farm Rocksteady. Keep going. And then interacting with the community organization Brooklyn Movement Center, which, especially during the pandemic, helped grow the base for the Central Brooklyn Food Co-op. So you see here, these are many sectors interacting. It's like a little micro ecosystem. Next, we have citywide, an example of soon to be launched drivers cooperative, trying to have an alternative to Uber. That's financed by the very important credit union, Lower East Side People's Federal Credit Union, that wanted to prioritize working with them, and that has as their first customers, clients, partners, the largest co-op in the country, in the Bronx, the Cooperative Home Care Associates, which wanted to get to their jobs using that drivers cooperative. So there's another little micro ecosystem, these groups supporting one another. And then there's outside of the city, a source of capital as well. That's another cooperative one. Finally, to go to the Northwest Bronx, there's a lot of Brooklyn people here. Of course, I live in Bay Ridge. I respect Brooklyn, but there's too much Brooklyn. Come on, let's talk about the Bronx. So Norwood CSA is distributing their food into community gardens, as well as, thank you, Sade. Keep going, Claire, yes. And many of the members of that CSA are in amalgamated housing. The housing cooperative, I think, is repped here, and that is financed by a local community development credit union, Van Cortlandt. So here we have also a nice food-focused food chain, but I think we could ask ourselves too, we have several food examples. How could this work elsewhere? What gaps are there in the chain that we could have kind of a holistic vision? And finally, yeah, how is it that Tokyo, Quebec, parts of Brazil, I think Dr. Jessica mentioned Italy, they're doing this on a scale that I think we could aspire to. And the reason they've been able, part of the reason they've been able to build such power and assert themselves is because they do this, by the millions, and they really have that tight coordination on all levels of the value chain.